Hello, everybody. This is Dave Wallace coming to you from the backyard of our home here in Wahiawa, Hawaii. And this is January here in Hawaii. It's nice and warm, mid 70s, and no snow on the ground. So, those of you watching me from the mainland, eat your heart out. Okay. So, anyway, I wanted to share a story with you folks today. And before I start with this story, I have a question to ask you. How many of you have ever moved into a home or into a space? And when you move into this place, you you know for some reason you're not welcome. What kind of things would happen in this environment where you're not welcome? And this is a situation that I faced on the island of Molokai back in 1975, I believe, 75, 76. And I had moved home to the island, and I was hired as a firefighter, and I was working as a firefighter first at the Kanakai station, and later on they opened up a new substation up in Holihua, and I was one of the first firefighters to be assigned there. So I was living in a small home that we rented out in Mauna Loa. That's on the west end of the island, and I was looking for something that was closer to the place that I work. And sure enough, I went and started talking with my parents, and my parents told me about a place that was available, and they knew the person that was in charge of the place. He was our neighbor. I call him Uncle Charlie, and so Uncle Charlie was responsible for this place. And this place was a tiny little cottage, and it was a cottage that was originally built for the a preacher. Okay, and this cottage was located on the grounds of the Ho'olehua Congregational Church, which was built real close to the high school and close to my parents' place, and in its walking distance to where I was stationed as a firefighter. So very ideal. Anyway, it was one bedroom, small little cottage, and was just enough for me, my wife, and my little daughter. Okay, and so I talked to Uncle Charlie to see if I could move in, and he didn't see a problem with it. And so I took my family out of Mauna Loa and moved into this little cottage. Now, um, one of the first nights that I was sleeping there, I woke up to go use the restroom. And as I went to use the restroom, out of the corner of my eyes, I saw this black shadow moving through the kitchen. And as soon as I turned towards it, it disappeared. And this black shadow kept on appearing for several days. And I prayed about it and I started asking God to show me what was up with this place. And in a dream, several weeks later, I received a dream where I was sleeping inside the cottage, and I heard voices outside calling me by my name. I said, "David John, get out of here. Get out." And so I opened the front door and I went out, and um, the cottage was situated closest to the road and sat between the chapel, the chapel, and a social hall. There's a big social hall where they had parties and things like that. And so there's a big yard um, in front of it. Anyway, that yard was packed with people, and they were looking at me very angry and not very happy. And so I confronted them. I says, you know what? I was invited to stay here, and I'm going to stay here as long as I can. And the crowd basically looked at me and says, "We don't want you here." And so after having this disturbing dream, I went over and talked to my parents and say, you know what? I explained what I saw in a dream, and my dad explained to me that uh, maybe the Uncle Charlie knows me because he's our neighbor. He know me from the time I was a little kid running around chasing his pigs. But for the rest of the congregation, they saw me as a Mormon. Okay, and this was a Mormon moving into a pastor's home on a church ground. So they seen it as something not good for the church. And after being explained to that perspective, I understood why the people would not be happy with me. And so I prayed and asked God to open up a way for me to find a better place. And it's really interesting. Not too long after receiving um, that dream, one day I was walking in a store and I happened to hear a couple that had owned some land up in Camilolo Heights, and they were looking to sell this property. And uh, my big ears heard their conversation, and I made an offer on the land, and we were. I found financing to purchase this place. So anyway, as we were preparing to move into, build our home and move into this place, so the last incident that I had in the home that kind of like sealed, yeah, I made sealed the fate of us not wanted at this place. My little girl, who was about 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old, and one day we were coming home from shopping, and I had a grocery bags and everything, and she was helping me bringing in the groceries. And so we left the car and walked up to the back porch, which enters the home through the kitchen. And I went in and started putting the groceries down. And when I turned back, I saw my daughter frozen in place, and she had a kind of like strange look on her face, like her eyes were wide open, and she was focusing on a spot near the ceiling. And I looked at her and I says, "Baby, you okay?" And all she said was, "Daddy, bad man, bad man." And so I looked and I kind of like tried to eye the spot where she was looking at, and I could see a shadow up there, faint shadow. And so she kept on pointing at it. And so I says, "Well, you keep on watching this bad man and you tell me where it is, okay?" And so she said, "Okay." And she remained standing outside of the porch. And so I went into the kitchen, I put everything down, and I asked the spirit to leave the place. At first, it just stayed stuck in up in a wall, but as I started to ask God to intervene, the spirit started to move and started to stay right at the corner of the wall and the ceiling, and it started moving along, came to the right, and hit the wall to my farthest right, and continued to move in the same spot along the edge of the ceiling and the wall. and it continued to move and move and move. And I'm watching my daughter for feedback, and she's tracing and tracking the spirit. And as soon as I saw her looking kind of like up where the spirit was right by the back door, I commanded the spirit to leave, and I pulled my daughter in, and the spirit left the place. And I asked my daughter, "Okay, where's the spirit?" And she says, "Spirit gone, bad man gone." So, while living in that home, there was always a feeling of uneasiness, like somebody's watching us, and some things um, on the verge, just below the surface, like you could feel anger and hate, and there was a lot of that going on in that house. And so, moving out of that home was a good thing. So now, if you find yourself in similar situations and stuff, again, always check out. Um, there, there's always a reason why a home will feel uncomfortable. It's either something that you're bringing into the home. For me, I should have been more aware that, yeah, I don't belong to this congregation. Yeah, that's not my church. And for the people to feel angry that a non-church member would be living there, um, I can fully understand their frustrations at me at the time. So once I moved out, everything was fine. Okay, we didn't have that spirit, you know, kind of like tagging us. Okay, so this is my story for today, and I hope you folks enjoyed it. And if you enjoy stories like this, you can also you'll find more of these types of stories in my book, The Journey of Our Souls, and you can find it on Amazon, and you can order the ebook as well as the paperback. And if you want a signed autograph hard copy, I have my website, uh, thejourneyofursouls.com. Okay, so mahalo for tuning in, and the lottery is coming up soon, and we'll see you later. Okay, and this is Dave Wallace saying aloha.